So why not pass a law that says any elected official who opposes the building of a border wall is prohibited from putting a lock on the front door of his house?
Well, that would affect a lot of Republicans. I mean, my own senator would have trouble with that, John Cornyn, because he's been against the border wall, saying it wouldn't work. But we all know that walls do work. They do work. And I've seen it. I've seen how it works. The Border Patrol.
Why would John Cornyn be opposed to a border wall protecting his own state?
I don't understand it. I've seen quotes from him. I've seen video clips from him over and over how it's not enough. It doesn't work. It's a bad idea. He is opposed to the border wall. He's helped appropriate billions and billions and billions of dollars for border security in other countries. I know. It's really odd that he thinks it works other places, but it doesn't work in Texas. And he's sort of mocked it and said it doesn't work. It's not
I'd love to hear him mock Israel's border walls. Do you think he will?
No.
Oh, I'd love to hear him mock Ukraine's territorial integrity. Do you think he will?
Nope. Never heard him do that.
What is that about?
I don't understand it. I mean, I think the Bushes had the same idea that open borders were relatively good. I don't think that he or the Bushes.
But only for us, not for. No one's calling on China to open its borders.
I don't know why they have this view, but I mean, even under the Bush presidency, I don't think they took immigration seriously. The first president I've ever seen take it seriously is Donald J. Trump.
How did John? I mean, this is a question I could ask if no offense. I say this as a Texas lover who's got a lot of relatives there, including a child. So I love Texas. However, I think you've got some of the worst politicians in the country. Like, how did that happen? How does that happen?
So, I think about like the Texas House and what's going on there. What's gone on there for 16 years, where a small group of Republicans, for power, align themselves in the House with the Democrats so that the Speaker is elected by mostly Democrats and a few Republicans. They just did it again. Dustin Burrows just got elected by a minority of Republicans after he put the rules in place that the Republican caucus, would decide who the Speaker was. And when he lost that vote in caucus, he walked out, cut a deal with the Democrats, and he just became Speaker of the Texas House. That is for power. That is for his own personal, power. And that the Republicans that do that have traded getting good policy done, getting property tax done, school choice, protecting the border, not doing impeachments of guys that just got elected. They traded that to have power. That's all it is.
With all this drug cartel money in your state, it's not going to get better because you could just buy a member of the Texas legislature. What would that cost? Not too much.
Not too much. I mean, these guys, they only make $600 a month. So, anything is good after that, I guess.
We're pretty vulnerable that way.
I think we are. And I think a lot of these people, because Texas House, you get paid $600 a month. So most people that run have to have money. You can't.
Of course.
And if you don't have money, you're getting paid somewhere for something because it's impossible to live on obviously $600 a month. So everybody has to either work, and it's hard to work when you've got a job that may take a year out of every 2 years.
So just specifically on John Cornyn, how did he get to be a senator when statewide in Texas?
So this goes back to George W. Bush appointed him to be a U.S. Supreme Court judge not U.S. but a Texas Supreme Court judge. And when he did that, he authored an opinion that created this thing called Robin Hood, which takes from the wealthy school districts and gives to the poor, supposedly. And what that did to our system was it created a mediocre school system because it's just socialism. Instead of just letting the wealthy school districts make their schools however they want to, we've got to take their money away. Why don't we just fund the poor school districts? It makes no sense. But I think
because it's not about helping the bottom; it's about crushing the top.
It's about making it all equal. That's socialism. It doesn't work. It's never worked anywhere. We have no example that it actually works. So, and yet John Cornyn did that for George W. Bush because George wanted to be president. He didn't want to pass a major tax increase, so he let John do it judicially. It was a 5-4 decision. John Cornyn was on the 5-4.
Really?
And I'm pretty sure he authored it. And so
this was in the late 90s.
Yes, and for that, they pushed him. Rove and Bush pushed him to be the Attorney General of Texas, first Republican actually, and then they pushed him into the U.S. Senate. So he has been pushed and funded by that group. And fortunately, Texans have caught on to that and realized that group, whatever they say they believe, isn't really what they believe because they don't actually follow through on it.
Well, but, we kind of know what Bush believes. His family's out there campaigning for Planned Parenthood, voting for Kamala Harris. I was with him 2 days ago, and Obama at the inauguration, right next to them, across from him. I watched him, pal around with it. He's friends with Obama.
That's his world.
Right, that's his world. that's all well known. But and pretty distressing was running mate endorsed Kamala Harris, and his sad little daughter campaigned for Kamala Harris. So that whole world is now, they're all Democrats. But John Cornyn is still an statewide elected official in Texas. He's a puppet of the left, obviously. Like, how does that continue to happen?
So I think it's because people weren't as aware of what the Bushes did and what he's done, but they've become more aware because of people like you and others who have outed that. So he's never had a real primary. He had 4 people running against him. None of them had money. Nobody had ever run before. No one even knew who they were.
It was all fake.
And he claims, he got 76% of it. Of course, he had nobody running against him that I could tell you who it was. And I'm pretty involved in politics. Somebody needs to run against him this time because he has been there for 16 years, just in that position. Count as AG, that's 4 years. He was Texas Supreme Court Justice, and before that, a district. He's been doing this a long time, and he's gotten away with this. It's about time that he be held accountable because I can't think of a single thing that he's done for Texas that's good. He has no claim for doing things good for Texas or our country.
No, he's helped Zelensky, and that's pretty much it. So, so what's the process? The guy, I've never met anyone who likes John Cornyn, never met anyone who thought he's achieved anything, never met anyone who thinks he's smart, he's pompous, he's quite a self-righteous little guy. So I think he's very unpopular with every person I've ever met in my life, and yet, all things being equal, he gets reelected. Shadowy online tech figures are buying and selling and spying on your personal information. There are plenty of privacy services out there that help prevent your data from getting stolen. But how do you get your privacy back when it's already been taken? And that's where ExpressVPN comes in. Not only do they protect your online activity going forward, preventing anyone from seeing what you're doing, they can also remove your information from the third parties who snatched it from you. ExpressVPN is the best. We spent a lot of time looking into this company. We use it on our show every day, and it's added 3 new features. It's clearly the most effective VPN on the market. It's got data removal, ID alerts, ID theft insurance. ExpressVPN scours data broker sites and asks for your information's removal. It monitors the dark web. It tells you when anyone uses your social security number, which can happen, and it reimburses you up to $1 million for reclamation expenses if someone steals your identity, which actually happens. So these features push VPN over the edge from nice to have it to you should have it. You really need to have it. Get started with ExpressVPN for free extra months, expressvpn.com/Tucker, or click on the link in the description or scan the QR code right here. So how do you stop something like that?
So I'll give you an example of what you're just saying. So right after I beat George P. Bush, who he came out and endorsed, of course, and then he made disparaging comments about me being an embarrassment to Texas, and he made some comment about me being part of Russia propaganda.
You're a Russian propaganda?
I don't know how that happened. I'm in Texas. I became part of the Russian propaganda because I criticized him on Ukraine.
He said that you were Russian propagandist?
Yes, that's what he said. Crazy stuff.
People didn't used to say things like that.
Right. Well, guess what? So
who's a more loyal American, you or John Cornyn?
Look,
who's more focused on the fortunes of his own country and his own people, you or John Cornyn, who obviously doesn't care at all, didn't say anything as his own state was invaded and lectures us endlessly. It's a tool of the intel agencies lecturing us about Ukraine, but you're the disloyal American? It's actually, you shouldn't say things like that. People should not talk like that.
It's crazy.
It is.
And so justice, the crazy thing, we have a Texas Republican convention shortly after the election where I win by 38 points against George P. Bush, which is a pretty significant margin in a primary. So we have the convention. There's 12,000 Republicans there. He and his wife walk up on stage, and for 10 straight minutes, he doesn't say a word. He gets booed. For the 20 minutes that he's speaking, he never adjusts his speech. He gets booed the entire 20 minutes. He gets booed 30 minutes straight. I'm standing, waiting to go on stage. I walk away because I'm afraid of what I might say after he's said these things public to me. I go up and get a standing ovation. So the people of Texas know John Cornyn, and I don't think he'll survive another primary.
So how do you stop this cycle?
So I think in Texas, it's very doable because people realize now who John Cornyn is. We have a primary not this March, but the next March. So somebody needs to run against him in that primary.
So in a year, basically in a year and 2 months, you have a primary.
Yep. So that primary.
Ooh, it's imminent.
It's coming. Yeah, absolutely. So he's I don't think he's long for this Senate world.
So, well, I'm sure he's got such an enormous reservoir of skills and talent that he'll thrive in the private sector. Doing what?
I don't know if he's ever been there.
He couldn't start my truck on a cold day. He has no idea. He has no skills. But anyway, sorry, I'm being too mean, but it's all true. How do you beat him in a primary?
So I don't know if I'm running for sure. I'm looking at it probably in the next few months. I'll be talking to people around the state, but I've run 2 primaries against George P. Bush and another guy, Dan Branch, who was one of George W.'s
I knew Dan Branch, yeah.
Yeah, one of his
years
close,
ago, 25 years
close
ago.
friends, but very moderate. And
You're a nice guy.
I beat him nicer to you than he was me.
Yeah.
I served in the House with him. One always so nice to me. 65-35 him. He had a lot more money. Same with Bush. I beat him 68-32. So primary voters, if they're educated, will make good choices based on what you've actually done.
Yes.
And that was always me. With Dan Branch, we were in the House together for 10 years, and I moved over to the Senate for 2 while he was in the House. And I said, don't listen to the rhetoric. Look at the record. We both have a record. Go look at the record. Compare them. See if they're the same. They're not. He can say what he wants. He is not what he's running on my record. Look at his record. And that works in primaries. And the same thing with John Cornyn. I bring out what he said about Trump and how disparaging he was of Trump in 2016 and 2000, just in those last elections, saying he shouldn't run, he's not the right guy. I mean, John's wrong about most everything. There's very few things. He tends to side with the swamp in Washington, and he does what Karl Rove tells him to do. So that doesn't work in Republican primaries, not in Texas.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.